Good evening, everybody. Before I begin, I really want to thank Lucas, Heather, and Evelyn, and the rest of the team here for inviting me out today. So, my name is Mariette Lee, and I am a co-founder of GapGen. So you're probably going to ask me, well, what's GapGen? Well, we are a relatively new, well, actually brand new initiative that is dedicated to youth development and youth engagement. And we offer integrative programming centering on the themes of grow, prep, and share. And it is our goal to be able to equip our youth with their own unique toolkit so then they can handle whatever transitional challenges that come their way in life. And I'll explain about this a little bit more. Truthfully, it's a little bit strange for me to be speaking with you all today. I never imagined myself to be an entrepreneur, much less spark a social enterprise. When it was time for me and my friends to leave high school and on to life thereafter, we realized that something was very much missing. There was this empty space, a gap really, so hence the name GapGen, between the traditional classroom and the post-secondary world that the classroom didn't quite prepare us for. And I'm talking about tangible things like resume building, building supportive social networks, learning to live on your own, financial literacy, and on and on and on. But also the less tangible things like exploring your passions, coping with failure, and being resilient. So at the age of 17, I could not wait to go to university. Me and my siblings were the first of our entire extended family to have the opportunity to pursue higher education. I had the utmost optimistic outlook that the next 4 years would be the best time of my life. My teachers, my parents' friends, anybody that had anything to say about it said that I was going to love it, and that if I worked hard, I was going to succeed, and that if I got good grades, I was going to get good jobs. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound simple? It probably doesn't sound simple because it wasn't. Towards the end of my second year, I began to feel incredibly overwhelmed. I was trying to do too much. I was spreading myself too thin, and I was trying to be that perfect student. And I quickly learned that having good grades was not enough. And even then, my grades were slipping to the point where I failed 2 courses. I cannot adequately explain to you in words how disappointed and how ashamed of myself I was. And it wasn't just because I was falling behind some arbitrary 4-year timeline of pursuing an education. No, it was because I lost tuition money, I lost scholarship money that I was depending on to get through school, I couldn't partake in intellectual conversations that my peers were having, and I could literally see the words failure from my transcript going onto my resume, and then basically onto everything else that I did. So I began skipping classes. I stopped eating properly. I couldn't sleep, and I started withdrawing from day-to-day activities, gripped by feelings of anxiety and depression and sadness that I really just couldn't for the life of me understand. I stopped talking to my friends, and then eventually I stopped talking to my family, and that was a huge hit for them. And it was cut off, total silence. Now, if you've been following along with me, you'll probably see where I'm going with this. I never imagined myself to be an entrepreneur because I never, at one point, imagined myself to have much of a future. And on a more serious note and a bit of a trigger warning, there was a point in my life where I came perilously close to becoming one of Canada's youth suicide statistics. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, it is the second leading cause of non-accidental death of youth amongst North America. I think we're losing about 2 youth Canadians each day to suicide. So I wasn't kidding when I was saying there was a day when I decided that my life was simply not worth living anymore. But I was really, really lucky that I had some really stubborn friends, and if you have stubborn friends, you know what I'm talking about. These are people who noticed and cared enough to reach out to me at a time that made all the difference. Whatever it is that you're doing right now, whatever your calling may be, I think some of you might agree with me that your calling comes out of a very difficult experience. My struggle with depression and anxiety reshaped my worldview and my priorities. I started leaning into mental health advocacy work, And that was when I realized that I was not the only person experiencing the struggle. Literally, almost everybody that I talked to at university after I started learning more about it was telling me how similar they felt. I started going deeper down that rabbit hole, becoming more attuned to the social challenges, social issues surrounding the mental health challenges. The support that I received from my friends helped me open up. When they reached out, they made me want to reach back and hang on. And from there, we created a community where we were unapologetically bold in supporting each other and helping one another. And so when people ask me today, well, why is it that you want to work with youth? I say, because being young has always been hard, regardless of what generation you're a part of. It is a dynamic constant that always has new hurdles coming your way, regardless of what happens. And sometimes as youth, we know what we're doing, and sometimes as youth, we don't know what we're doing, and we can always use a little bit of extra guidance. But the lesson that I learned here is that when youth are united by their passion and by the possibility of contributing to some common good, it is absolutely explosive. It will inspire people to think differently, to seek solidarity, and to drive sustainable change. So what happened out of that experience and from me talking with more people kind of made this happen, which was a student club. And as we grew, the work that we did attracted media attention from the likes of CBC and Maclean's. And I remember speaking with the reporter, I think her name was Kate, about some of the challenges that youth today were facing, in particular post-secondary students. And I knew that I wasn't the only student that she was interviewing. So when that article from Maclean's came out in September of 2012, imagine my surprise in what they named the students that they interviewed. The broken generation. And they called it a crisis on campus, because there were a shocking number of Canadian students who were depressed and felt suicidal even. And then, of course, there was a breakdown as to why our quote-unquote best and brightest felt so troubled. Now, the statistics that they've provided in that article has since changed, and these are the more recent ones. But doing that interview and then reading the article, reading those statistics, and more importantly, the stories of peers that I've never ever met in person made me wonder, what more can I do beyond student-run groups? And funnily enough, it was because of this work that I was doing in which I was recruited into my very first professional job. I worked in a nonprofit dedicated to mental health awareness, and I worked with students across the country in implementing their own mental health, education, and awareness initiatives, and then I helped them fundraise so that they could be able to support the much-needed program delivery. Now, do you remember earlier when I said that your calling often comes out of a very difficult experience? Despite my best efforts at the time, teen suicides seemed to be filling headlines. At the time, I was living in Hamilton, and I think there were about 3 students from the same high school who took their own lives within the span of 1 year. Fast forward 2 years when I graduated, and I was doing a speaking tour in Eastern Ontario. And I was talking to students about my mental health story, much like I'm telling you today. And students as young as 12 years old came up to me afterwards and thanked me for inspiring them to seek help. Now think about that for a second. 12 years old. And while I was grateful for the job that I had, and it seemed to be that I was making some sort of impact, I wasn't 100% certain that this was the right fit for me. Because the youth that I was encountering in this role, I usually meet them once, and that's it. I don't really quite know what happens to them thereafter. So I had to ask myself, is this the best that I can do to be in service of the common good? Answering your calling is not just something that comes out of a difficult experience. It also requires you to do something that you're good at, and for you to really believe that the work you're doing is bettering the lives of others. So I parted ways with my job, and I decided to go back to school. And I'm currently pursuing my master's in counseling psych with the hopes and goal that I'd be able to fill those gaps in the healthcare system by working with youth on the front lines. And you would think that would be it, get your degree and then you're good to go. But no, it's never that simple, because somebody once asked me, and I'm gonna put in a little trigger warning here, and I quote them, and they asked me, Mariette, what would it take for another kid or youth to never want to kill themselves? Blunt, yeah, I know, and loaded. And I remember being dumbfounded by this question. And the truth is, I don't know. I really don't. But I want to find out. Because if there's anything that my journey has taught me thus far, is that we are all capable of goodness, no matter what life has thrown at us. We are all destined to fulfill a social mission, whatever that may be. And while I don't necessarily disagree with being termed the broken generation, I'm not a huge fan of it either. And so I am pursuing further education and training, fully aware that the youth that I will encounter in my future practice may very well be our society's most vulnerable, and that they could really use somebody with that compassion, with that knowledge, with that patience to help them gather up the pieces. But at the same time, I never want to encounter another 12-year-old or 16-year-old, for matter, really whatever age of youth you might be, when they are at the point where they're so hopeless and feel worthless and feel so broken to the point where they don't think their life matters. So, besides another degree, what can I do? Answering your calling, I've realized, also takes courage. It's going to probably rub some people the wrong way. And it's going to make you have to give up certain things and make sacrifices so you can make it happen, like quitting your job or going back to school and selling your soul for more tuition. But it also requires you to be present, to be those boots on the ground, and to be outside, to push yourself outside of your comfort zone so you can start something that can help you fulfill whatever social mission it is that you have. And for me right now, that's kind of what GapGen is all about. An initiative where we work with youth so that we can provide integrative programming based on their needs, their opinions, and their design. We're looking to create a culture and a community wherein our youth can be united by their passion and their optimism, and also their need for exploration. We want to help them grow by learning through play and practical experiences, and we want to help them prepare through transitions and skill building. And we want to help them share and support one another through knowledge exchange and connections, not unlike what we're doing here tonight. So, if I can leave you with anything tonight, is that I think there's always more than one solution to an issue. And I think that each of us, whatever our experiences may be, whatever our journey may be, we have enough of a different perspective where we can tackle it differently. So for me and for GapGen, our question was, what would it look like if we were able to equip our youth with their own unique toolkits so that they can handle transitional challenges in life? And we're going to find out. Thank you so much for listening.